Think apprenticeships are just for school leavers?
Think again.
In Wales, apprenticeships are for everyone.
Age 16 to 66 at any stage of their career.
From digital skills to management qualifications, ACT training offers pathways in over 30 sectors.
And the best part, they're fully funded, with tailored delivery to suit your needs.
Ready to boost your career or grow a team?
Visit acttraining.org.uk today and discover the power of apprenticeships. Welcome to For Wales, See Wales, sponsored by ACT Training. My name is Robin Morgan.
My name is Mel Owen.
And I'm Will Hayward.
How are we doing?
I'm still in the afterglow of the live show, guys.
What a lovely live show it was.
It was so great, wasn't it? I firstly cannot believe how many people came. It was such a crowd.
It was about 250.
It was great.
And I only knew like 25 of them.
Yeah, sure. No, it was lovely. I was chatting to a friend in the pub yesterday who said, "Oh, we saw the picture that looked rammed." You know, like it was honestly, we said it a lot on the day, but like it meant a lot that people put their hands in their pocket and came out. So thank you very much for coming out. If you didn't, we hate you, and I'm sure there'll be another live show, another opportunity to come out and hang out with us.
Yeah, another Corners of Wales. Who knows?
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, it was a brilliant show, and obviously we had two parts. We had the bit that went out as the podcast. I hope that really worked. But it was just so nice being able to interact with the listeners and hearing the things that they've picked up on, things that we'd forgotten that we've mentioned on the podcast, but people have really held on to. So no, it was absolutely brilliant. My little heart was so big.
Right. It probably was the hardest thing for producer Daryl ever to edit because we were pretty labelless.
Yeah, for sure.
We cut that.
Yeah, absolutely.
I don't know. Well, it's not libel when it's true, but.
Sure, but I think it's nice that we left some stuff just for the live audience.
For the room.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Leave it in the room.
Pay £10 and we will say anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. We'll sort of Ron Burgundy some real legal shit.
Yeah, but didn't it feel like we've got such a community? No, is that
really
a bit to say?
No, I don't think so.
Yeah.
No, it does feel like that. And I was in Tenby on Sunday, getting some ice cream, and two people. I know, but it's the best. It's the best. Where can you get a stick of rock in Cardiff? And two people said, "Love the pod." And so you can't even get away. And then my wife and kids were there, and weird. They
never say it.
No, they hate the podcast. Why we're not hitting the 8 and 5-year-old demographic at all? It's shocking, to be honest.
Yeah, we've really missed a trick there.
Yeah, and we're not reaching them because they vote Reform, and this is the issue. They're both big Reformites.
Yeah, they're the retweeters. Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
but no, I think we are. It feels like people. There is a time and place for this podcast, and it feels like we've hit it. And very, very happy to be here.
Yeah, and most importantly, there is an audience who want to know about Welsh politics.
Yeah.
And which is why we started this. You know, and it kind of goes to prove that if these things are available, people will take an interest.
I think we did start it with that. I started it because I wanted my face on a mug.
Oh, and here it is.
Like the mugs.
If you're watching on YouTube, here they are. If you're not, get on YouTube.
This is what they sound like when they're cheersed. And they only come in packs of 1, so you have to buy 2 or 3.
ASMR.
But yeah, basically we have merch now. We have merch available, which I think is on all the links to the podcast and stuff, and we can put it on Insta, but you can buy teas and totes and other things not beginning with T.
Yeah.
Thank you if you came out to the live show. What's on the non-live show?
It's going to be Rant City. If I was to say to you the Crown Estate, what am I talking about?
The location in which The Crown was filmed.
That one estate, like an industrial estate with loads of filming studios.
It's all green screen, baby.
Yeah.
I've never seen The Crown.
I don't think I have either.
What is going on?
I've told you about the time I auditioned for The Crown, right?
Fuck off.
Really?
No.
Forget the Crown Estate. This.
I'm shutting the laptop.
I'm pretty sure I've told this on the podcast.
No, you haven't.
Okay,
you definitely haven't.
Let's say 2018, 2019. I'm living in London. I get an email from my agent saying, "Would you like to read for this role?" I say, "Yes, please."
Prince Andrew?
No, typecast again, right? No, it was for a member of. Was it the Crown? It must have been the Crown. Thatcher's cabinet. during that series. And I think the defense minister, right? So I learn all the lines. Great. And then my son, he's absolutely fine, has a hospital appointment that day. He had a problem with his leg, needed to get a scan on his leg.
Yeah.
The audition was at 11 a.m. My son's appointment was at 9:30 a.m. So I go to the appointment dressed as a Tory from the 80s in a suit, blue tie. Yeah, absolutely. They're like, who's this guy? Like, well, this is very novel. So I go there with my son. He has the scan. Everything's absolutely fine. All good.
Great.
I get I drop him back off at his nursery, then jump in an Uber straight away to go to Soho to audition. I'm shitting myself, going over the lines again, getting an impression right. Like, it's a real life guy that I was auditioning for. And then I get a call from my agent in the taxi saying, "Hi, Robin, are you on the way to the audition?" I say, "Yes." And they say they've made a mistake. They wanted Rob Morgan, not Robin Morgan. I then go, that makes sense because the person I'm playing is a 60-year-old man. And I thought Netflix, there's a lot of money, a lot of prosthetics, right? Yeah. So I honestly spent 3 or 4 days prepping. Honestly, like finding old speeches for him on podcasts where like they'd researched this guy because it was during the Falklands. He was quite a big sort of, I can't remember who it was, but I got the voice down. I was driving to gigs back and forth, doing the voice in the car down the M4, like getting my fucking mannerisms right. And they were like, "Yeah, they're really sorry. We wanted Rob Morgan." I was like, "That makes sense because Rob Morgan, the actor, is twice my age."
God.
Yeah. Oh, that is heartbreaking though. Because I also think, could you not have been like, "Can you just hear me though?"
Yeah, exactly.
Give me 15 minutes.
Yeah, it's fine. Just make a choice. Make a creative choice, and he could be really young in this.
To be fair, it's not the first time the Tories have ruined the prospects of a young Welsh man.
Very nice, Will.
Very nice. Yes. Wow, I love that story.
Thank you.
However, you have acted as a spad in something I've seen you in, the Channel 4 Boris Johnson drama thing.
This England,
Yes.
on Sky Atlantic.
Yes, I love doing that.
Bless you. I
Do you
played
get
myself.
cast as like background Tory?
I get when I go to auditions, it's just people who look like me, which is just white men with glasses, and it's usually just like geek or like young dad type stuff. I mean, it's so weird. You must get this for like castings as well when you go and it's just like, well, it's just looking like Where's Wally in the room.
Yeah, we all look the same.
Yeah.
Like, well, I wonder what they're going for in this role.
Like, oh, this is sad. Right, that's what you think of me, right? Okay.
Yeah,
Let's change my headshots.
Yeah.
Nice. So can I talk to you about the Crown Estate?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, sure.
This isn't as fun. Apart from obviously the set of the show The Crown, what is the Crown Estate?
King Charles, your friend of mine, the money that he gets from certain bits of the UK.
Yeah, basically.
Yes.
So the Crown Estate is the land owned by the monarch, and it is actually run for a company called a company called the Crown Estate. And in Wales, they have 65% of the coastline, all of the seabed out for 12 miles, about 55,000 acres of land in Wales, and also any gold and silver that's found.
That's mad.
Wow.
That's like proper pirate shit, isn't it?
Yeah, so if you ever find some gold, that'll be some big old sausage fingers reaching into your pocket.
So if I find some gold, do I have to declare it, or can I not just put it in my pocket?
I think if you swashbuckle like a pirate, you're allowed to claim it.
And I will.
So when you say found, I do realise we're labouring this point a bit too much. Do you mean like if I was to find some gold on the street, or if I was mining, for instance, like I often do on a Sunday morning, and I how do you mine with a fork or something?
Doing a time team.
Yes, exactly, with your chisel, and then I came across a bit of gold. Would I think I've got to report this?
I think the way that he would gather the money for that is because you would buy a licence to
see.
mine the area.
I see. Okay. So, yeah, you know those adverts like, "You wouldn't fish without a rod license."
Yeah.
It's just like, "You wouldn't chisel without a gold license." Yeah.
You've all seen them.
We all know the ones I mean.
Yeah.
So the money that's generated across the UK, it's about 1.1 billion. So a lot of money. 25% of that goes to the monarchy to help with their official duties.
Yeah, fair enough.
The rest goes to the Treasury.
Okay.
Except for in Scotland, where it goes to the Scottish government.
Right.
Because after the referendum for Scottish independence in 2014, it was really close. It was much closer than they thought it would be.
Yeah.
And they went, we need to give the Scots something here because they are kicking off.
Yeah.
So they devolved the Crown Estate. And they said, right, money generated from the Crown Estate, you are going to get that. You'll get that cash, minus the 25% for His Royal Highness, our Defender of the Faith.
That's interesting. And was that a coalition? Is that before the Cameron government of 2015, or like in the last bit of time?
It was in the negotiations. It will have probably because I think it came in 2017, so
Okay.
it will have crossed from the coalition over to the
Sure.
chaos with Ed Miliband election.
Yeah, sure.
Next one.
The bacon butty one.
The bacon
Yeah.
butty one.
Yeah.
This is actually really good for Scotland. Wales, it's not devolved. You won't be surprised to hear Wales has a worse deal. However, a couple of weeks ago, inside Westminster, Plaid Cymru tabled an amendment to devolve the Crown Estate to Wales. So Wales would then get cut off the money in Wales. And this would potentially lead to hundreds of millions of pounds for Wales over the coming decades. And the good thing about it is, for so many, like hundreds of years, Welsh resources have been extracted, haven't they? You've had like coal, water, and the people of Wales haven't necessarily benefited from that directly, except with, lung disease. And what this would enable us to do is essentially mean that money stays in Wales more. So this was tabled inside Parliament, and of all the Welsh Labour MPs, so there's 27 of them, 27 of the 32 MPs in Wales are Labour, every single one of them voted against it.
Wow.
Said, we're not going to devolve it. So it begs the question of why? Because ultimately, this is a way of safeguarding their constituents, isn't it, long term? So I approached all 27 of them. I didn't tailor the emails. I basically did a kind of BCC. and said-
Sure.
Nice.
Yeah.
Hi, insert name here.
I basically said, I know a lot of you quite well, but there's a lot of you. So here are a list of questions. The questions I asked them, is, why did you vote against the Crown Estate being devolved? What's your rationale for Wales being denied the Crown Estate when Scotland hasn't? And do you feel that your constituents are better or worse off if the Crown Estate is devolved? One person replied, I won't name him or her, saying, I'm really sorry, we're not going to respond to this. I did then get a statement from UK Labour. Now, this is long, and it's mainly wank.
They opened with that.
Yeah.
That's the subject line.
That's wild.
No, they're law unto themselves, these
This
MPs.
is mainly whack.
I'll read it out and then I'll actually explain what they're saying. So, the Crown Estate plays a significant role in attracting international investment into Wales to support the UK government's economic growth and clean energy missions. It will continue to do so, particularly through the £1.4 billion investment and over 5,000 jobs we want to enable through floating offshore wind projects in the Celtic Sea. Devolving the Crown Estate and introducing a new entity would risk market fragmentation, complicate the existing processes, and delay further development offshore. Even if devolution could be done without risking the revenues the Crown Estates generate, it would not automatically lead to an increase in funding to the Welsh Government. This is because any revenues retained by the Welsh Government in the devolved system would likely be offset through reductions to their block grant, as is the case in Scotland. We're going to come back to that. However, the UK government was pleased to work with Lords Livermore and Hayne to agree an amendment to the Crown Estate Bill that will see the appointment of a commissioner with special responsibility for Wales. Jesus Christ. This is a landmark step towards ensuring Welsh prosperity is at the heart of the government's mission to become a clean energy superpower. And then it just goes on. Our nation stands to benefit hugely from investment in floating offshore wind, and we now have representation we need to help seize the moment. We want to put more money in people's pockets and reduce energy bills, and we'll be working with partners like the Welsh Government and the Crown Estate to make sure we deliver on these promises. So, after I've just bombarded you with 10 paragraphs, I can tell you basically there's two reasons.
May I just intercept?
Please.
Just very. I think it's such a shame you didn't grow up in Wales and do Eisteddfod, because you would have got the stage and you would have won every single time. Chivalry, recital, dramatic readings. That was superb.
It was very good.
Yeah.
I would have struggled to pronounce everything.
Oh yeah. Well,
I'd have had
it's
to
a
have
shame.
referred to Mel every single time.
Yeah.
In another life,
Yeah.
but I just wanted to say you'd have been a brilliant Eisteddfod
Oh,
child.
diolch yn fawr, thank you. So basically, they've made two arguments against devolving the Crown Estate. The first one is it won't lead to any more money for Wales because it will result in the reduction of the block grant we get, as is the case in Scotland. That was what they said, as is
Yeah.
the case in Scotland. Now, there's a big issue with this, and it's because it's rubbish. So Wales gets most of its money from the block grant. This is a lump of money that Wales gets from Westminster as a consequence of funding that's spent in England. There's a formula that gives Wales some money. Same for Scotland. Now, because Wales will be getting more money, if it was devolved, would be getting more money from the Crown Estate, the argument is, well, actually, Westminster would give them less. That is true. But the amount that they would reduce it by and the amount that Wales would get from the Crown Estate are likely very different. So let me give you the Scottish example. So when the Crown Estate was devolved to Scotland, they created a company which is imaginatively called Crown Estate Scotland.
Nice.
Yep. And basically, what they did was they said, right, we are going to reduce the block grant. And the block grant is reduced by 10 million a year. So Scotland gets 10 million less from Westminster because of the devolution of the Crown Estate. In about 3 years, it will go up to 20 million less. And in 5-6 years, it will go up to 40 million yes. So substantial amounts of money. However, last year, the Crown Estate generated £113.2 million for Scotland.
Wow.
So although they're getting 10 million less, they're gaining 113 million. Now, this is massive. So actually, this kind of completely contradicts this thing of, well, Wales won't get any more money anyway. Thing to say is, Wales is obviously smaller. So Wales, the Crown Estate, Wales, depends how you estimate it, it's estimated to be around 35 million that we'd get. The Welsh budget, the Welsh Government budget is 23 billion. So 35 million, you might think, that's not actually that much. But actually, this is a bit of a misnomer because that 32 million is likely to massively increase in the coming years because of all of these green energy projects that are coming. Offshore wind, although some of them are beyond 12 miles, but some of it will be covered by the Crown Estate. Loads and loads of the wind turbines you see on hills. This would be money that would be coming into Wales. So that Crown Estate is going to go up significantly. And ultimately, the Treasury don't want that to go to Wales. They want it to go to the Treasury because it's going to be a huge increase in money. The Scots have got an amazing deal. So basically, our own MPs have voted against something which is almost certain to give Wales a lot more money in the future. And I think that is a really, really crappy state of affairs where those people who we elect to go and back for us have essentially said, nah, we're going to vote with our party, with our UK party, instead of what I would say is representing the best interests of your constituents.
Do you think this is sort of, for years and years and years under the Conservative UK government, there was this argument of once we've got Labour on both sides of the M4, it'll be a better deal for Wales. This is an example of it basically going the other side, right? And the Welsh Labour MPs now having to toe the party line from their UK brethren, which doesn't work out as well for the nation in which they're representing, right?
Well, the whole point of devolving the Crown Estate, it's like if we'd have devolved rail back when we should have done it back in like 2007.
Yeah.
We shouldn't be at the whims of whether the UK government thinks, yeah, we'll do them a favour. It should be built into the system that Wales gets that money. And it's all very well saying, well, don't worry, we've appointed Peter Hain to be an ambassador, to be a representative. Ultimately, it only takes one Conservative government to come in and say, actually, nah, we're not going to do that. You have to entrench these things. And the other argument that they made was that it will risk market fragmentation, wouldn't it? That it will complicate existing processes. So all these tenders are currently out for these green energy products. And if we create a new Welsh company, it might get very complicated. There is an argument for that. But it does beg the question, why the hell was this not a problem when it was Scotland?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well, that's what doesn't kind of add up. The math ain't mathing then, is it? The math ain't mathing.
The math ain't mathing.
And, how can they reasonably defend that? And I do wonder how much this will be used. Mind you, I suppose because it's not devolved and that's the whole thing. But, I was wondering with the Welsh Parliament elections, like how much that could then be used to prove that Welsh Labour don't really care about Wales. Those are not my words, but if Plaid wanted to, they could really use that as a battering ram.
Yeah, well, I think it is a really, and I know people in Welsh Labour as in like MSs.
Yeah.
People in the Welsh government are really, really, really pissed off.
Well, I can understand that because this is giving Plaid something to whip them with, isn't it?
Yeah. I've got. Sorry.
Why did you enjoy that so much?
I don't know. Just thought of the Renicorn and whipping.
Yeah,
Drakey.
I enjoy that as well.
I know for a fact that people within Welsh Labour are really, really angry about it. This thing about Scotland and this not being an issue when it was Scotland was actually asked by a Plaid MP called Ben Lake, who Ceredigion, who said, why doesn't this apply in the Commons? He asked James Murray, who's the minister who's responsible, why did this not apply for Scotland? And James Murray's response was, we are not analysing what may have happened in Scotland historically. We are looking at the proposals put to us in those new clauses, which I am addressing. So basically, I'm not answering that.
Yeah, sure.
Giving gaslighting.
Yeah, surely isn't there like a legal precedent of that's I'm not a lawyer. Happy to have that on record. But surely within, I've seen Legally Blonde, and surely like in that they're looking for legal precedents, and then they can sort of.
But there is also a precedence of like disparity.
Yeah,
Do you know what I mean? There is a precedence of Scotland getting a better deal than Wales.
Yeah.
Throughout history.
Yeah, for sure. What's happening in Northern Ireland? Their Crown Estate. Do we know that?
I don't know.
Sure.
I don't know how it works with the Crown lands in Northern Ireland, because I tend to, because I'm an absolute coward, stay away from Northern Irish politics as much as I possibly can, because it's so complicated.
Fair enough. There's a lot going on, you know?
I loved that. It was a question time from like maybe 18 months ago, and there's some bloke, and they were like a really confident bloke, they were talking about Brexit and like customers and stuff. Why can't you just make the islands of Ireland? And he sat back. like he'd solved it, and everyone's like, a lot of reasons.
Like,
he thought he was so, like, he'd been rehearsing.
Yeah.
The Harry and Paul sketch of Question Time is brilliant. If you haven't seen that from their sketch show, it's so funny. It's like 3 minutes. YouTube it. Harry and Paul, their sketch show from Question Time is so fucking funny.
I love
sit
that.
back as though we've done a massive mic drop moment.
Yeah, exactly.
You heard me.
And Fiona Bruce just going...
Do you know what? I'm not even going to pose that as a question to the panelists. You're basic.
Yeah, basic.
Can you imagine for a moment? Like, so I weighed up, because I covered this in my newsletter this week, and I went really, really hard on it. And when I do that, I always think, am I going overboard here? Am I making a mountain out of a molehill? Because, like, obviously we have a party structure. Like, Welsh MPs can't just rebel every few minutes.
Sure.
On
no, of
everything
course.
they don't agree
Pick
with.
your battles, right?
And I was like, am I being really harsh? And the more I think about it, the more I just don't think I am. I think this is actually just a massive... I think they've essentially sided with their UK party over their constituents, because imagine for a second that Wales had the devolution of the Crown Estate and Scotland didn't. Like, imagine that situation. Can you imagine if there was an amendment for Scotland to be the same as Wales, and Scottish MPs went, nah, we're going to go back and tell our constituents, no, we don't think this is appropriate. It just wouldn't happen. It's just ridiculous.
Think what that would trigger. Imagine
an independence referendum.
Exactly. But also, what does it say about us? That I understand that this won't necessarily be in the headlines and so on, but that we just kind of accept this kind of shit. Like, as a country, we all just go, that's the deal we get. You know, why is more not being made of this?
I think, Mel, I think it's a fantastic point. I just don't. It's because we don't make a fuss over it. And I don't think you need to be like, well, we want to be independent then. I don't think it has to be like, but I think people being annoyed and people saying, hang on a minute, I voted for you. Why have you voted for this? And I think part of the reason is people in Wales are just more disengaged. I think the other part of it is the Crown Estate people don't know that much about. And we talk about all that culture war shit that you see online, people getting angry over stuff that just doesn't need to get angry over. It's because the extreme right always need an enemy. Basically, that's how you always have to have an argument. But this is something that is like a legitimate problem, which is going to have a meaningful impact. And I want to go back to what you said about Labour and about how Plaid are going to be able to whip them because of this. I really think that. So I've been speaking to people within Welsh government, not necessarily just like politicians, but other people involved, and they were saying to me that there is a growing group within Welsh Labour who think, shit, we need to pick a fight with Westminster. Like, we need to pick a constitutional fight soon, because we are marching towards our own electoral oblivion. Apparently, fellow party members in Westminster don't seem to give a shit about how bad we're going to do in this election. We need to visibly try and create some clear red water really quickly.
Yeah, that's interesting, isn't it? For all the years of saying, let's wait until we've got a Labour government down in London, and now they're going, let's distance ourselves again. That's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, the problem is they're uninclined to, because they're good soldiers, you know, they don't want to be seen to kick up a fuss. But actually, I don't see them losing a single vote because they pick that fight.
No.
The only problem is, if you pick that fight and you lose, you're basically saying, we have no sway with our fellow party in Westminster, and it's an absolute gift to Plaid. So they have to pick a fight that they can win. But I do think they need to do something, because it's just a bit embarrassing.
Yeah, it's really embarrassing, isn't it? And like you say, it's all those years of saying when we've got power at both sides of the M4, even though we hate that phrase, things will be better. And when it's kind of very much giving the same, it kind of unravels their whole argument. And I want to pick up what you said, Will, in terms of it, you don't have to be pro-independence to be distraught by this.
Yeah.
You know, you can... If anything, I think people who are pro-independence would kind of be like, well, doesn't this just prove our point?
Yeah.
I think the people probably who are most irritated by it, who are unionists, want Wales to be respected within the union, this kind of undoes an argument for
God,
unionism.
make it easy for us to defend this.
Exactly, exactly.
Have some respect for yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Bit of self-respect.
Nice. as we've just slagged off the UK government, I think it's only fair we do the Welsh government as well.
Let's go.
Guys, I want to talk to you about apprenticeships. Okay, so are most new apprentices in Wales men or women?
Ooh. Do you know what? I'm going to go Beyonce on this. I'm going to say women.
I'm going to say men because I'm a man.
It's actually women. So 60% of new apprenticeships last year in Wales were female. So what is interesting about that is I think with apprentices, you tend to think of them as traditionally, no longer traditionally male-dominated professions.
Right.
But actually, women are going to them in droves and realizing that actually work-based learning is a really, really good way to earn money, develop skills, and make yourself employable in a job market that never stands still.
That's really, really interesting.
Women in male fields. Love to see it.
Absolutely. How do you feel about that? Do you feel proud?
I do feel proud, absolutely. And I kind of feel left out that I'm not one of that 60%. I feel like I might leave right now and get an apprenticeship.
Yeah, what would you get an apprenticeship in?
I'd love to be one of those girls who's got like, I know this sounds stereotypical, but like a tool belt, she's going in. I'd like to be a builder or an electrician or something like that. Yeah. Sparks, brrr, that kind of thing.
That's fun. Yeah, like a footloose welder.
Yes, 100%. But I'd be doing it to music and welding absolutely nothing.
Just breaking holes in ships. This is not helpful in any way.
Nobody asked for this.
Mel, please go home. We don't want one of you as being one of the 60%. No, thank you.
Well, if you would like to do better than Mel in a profession, you can go to acttraining.org.uk. That's if you are a person wanting to do an apprenticeship or you're an employer want to take on apprenticeships. I suggest you go to acttraining.org.uk.
What's the website again?
It's acttraining.org.uk.
I'll head there right now.
Okay, so do you remember when Yolo Williams got really angry on the podcast a few weeks ago?
I do.
Yes, Yolo. He was very frustrated about biodiversity in Wales. So that isn't like climate change as such, but that is how species and the amount of diversity in wildlife within Wales has like plummeted. So between 1994 and 2003, there was a 20% fall. 1 in 6 Welsh species are at risk of extinction, not just endangered, like they're at risk of extinction. So the Welsh government, because they really care about nature, they've told us lots of times, they have said they're going back in 2015 they released their Nature Recovery Action Plan, and the following year they released the Environment (Wales) Act of 2016, and this aimed to reverse the decline in biodiversity. Fantastic, great stuff, really important. Now, part of the action plan was that public bodies had to build in enhanced biodiversity and resilience of ecosystems into what they did. So they had to have a plan and they had to have a strategy for increasing biodiversity. Now, for a council, that could look at lots of different things. It could be not, mowing grass verges in the middle of spring. There can be all sorts of things you can do. It's how you manage parkland. But every single public body had an obligation to do this. So we now fast forward kind of 8-9 years, and Audit Wales, which is like it's a public body which assesses and audits the Welsh Government's performance on lots of different things, and also other public bodies. It released a report, and I'm going to read you 3. I pulled out 4 conclusions from it, and we'll kind of sum it up. So the conclusions were: the Welsh Government has not complied with its own planning requirement and is not effectively monitoring public authorities' compliance and is unable to assess the overall impact of the duty on biodiversity decline. Several issues have not been addressed fully since they were highlighted in 2021. This includes uncertainty about which public bodies the duty actually covers. The Welsh Government is not holding public authorities to account by routinely monitoring or enforcing their compliance with the duty, and the Welsh Government has not set targets for biodiversity and is currently unable to assess the overall impact of the duty on biodiversity decline. So to sum up, the Welsh Government has no targets. They can't assess the impact of their legislation. It's not even monitoring public authorities, let alone enforcing it, and it hasn't even addressed issues that were highlighted almost half a decade ago.
And that's lunch.
This feels like when I told my parents I wanted to start comedy, and they were like, "What's your 5-year plan?"
Yeah.
And I had to go, "Dunno."
Yeah.
Not sure. That's what it's giving.
Yeah, just vibing it.
Yeah.
Just going on
but
vibes.
You didn't become a comedian going, "I really care about comedy and I am doing this and it's very important that I'm doing this. Praise me for doing this. Elect me for doing this." They did that.
Very true.
They've gone, "Aren't we really good at this?"
I mean, that is announcing you're doing a show at the Edinburgh Festival. That's
Yeah,
essentially
true.
that. I'm a
Praise me.
comedian. Look at at me. Is it written yet? No. Is it on sale?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
How much is my venue a night? £4,000. So it's really frustrating because it's a classic Welsh Government thing of they've paid incredible lip service to something and just, bodies don't even know if it applies to them. Like 49% have not complied with the requirements to both prepare and publish a biodiversity plan. 26 have at no point complied with the requirement to publish a biodiversity report. Like, it's crazy. And what's frustrating is like, the amount of things in my life I have said I'm going to do. I should be able to speak French.
Yeah.
Okay. I should be. What else should I be able to? I should be really, really ripped by now. I should have ran a marathon.
Yeah, I should have run a marathon as well. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
I have no interest in doing
Have you
it.
not?
No.
I had it for like 45 minutes.
Really?
You said you didn't like running. You weren't like.
No, I hate. Yeah, I want to be that person who's like, oh, it's just so good for my mental health. I hate every second. Of
You like the gym though, don't you?
Yes, I do. I like weightlifting, but I think it's a different. It's
Sure.
a different.
Yeah,
psyche.
I get
Yeah,
that.
you can't lunge round a marathon, can you?
26 miles on lunging would be a lot.
The barbell on your back. Oh, God. Oh, God.
I think the I say funniest. The most depressing thing about this was the recommendations that the Auditor General gave to the Welsh Government. So
Which was like start maybe
Yeah,
start
yeah,
doing
yeah.
fucking
Exactly what
something.
Page 1.
the first recommendation was the Welsh Government should publish a list of public authorities covered by the duty.
Yeah.
So literally,
It's a good
a
idea.
decade on, tell the people who it affects. The Welsh Government should lead by example by publishing its own high-quality biodiversity plan and report specifics of its own actions. So basically, they haven't followed their own laws, which they made, and sent out a lovely press release about how good it was.
Sure.
The Welsh Government should rigorously assess the cost of its proposed changes to environment law and ensure that there are adequate resources within public authorities to support the effective implementation. So basically, you brought in a law, you didn't know how much it had cost to do it, but you've made people do it, and now everyone's like, are we even affected by it? Can we even afford to do this?
Yeah.
Who said this? An auditor?
Yeah, so the Auditor General for Wales.
Okay, I'm not a politician, famously. I feel like I'd know that those are the steps.
Yeah.
I feel like even if I had to be like, right, what's like a 5-step plan for how to get this done? I feel like I could have written that.
Yeah. That is wild, isn't it? Like I feel like my admin is okay. Sometimes I get a little bit, busy, forget to reply to an email. I apologize. But if I've just brought out a law,
Yeah.
you know what I mean?
I'm covering the to-do list.
Yeah, I'm
ticking
doing
it
the
off.
basics.
Our law, not assessed who it affects, not assessed how much it will cost to do, and haven't even followed it myself.
Yeah.
The Welsh Government should require that public authorities submit their biodiversity plans, and it should also follow up public authorities if they haven't published these plans.
Oh, yeah, sure.
Giving no shit Sherlock.
Yeah.
It's very strong no shit, Sherlock.
But also they'll have to chase it up with themselves because they've not done anything. You know when you send yourself a text and then you go, oh, I've got a text. No, that's me. I just sent that.
Yeah, it was me telling me to do something.
Yeah. Like I when I think of a good idea for like I'm writing a book at the moment, and when I think of a good idea, I send myself a voice note, and then I listen back to them at the end of the month.
Yes.
And some of them are like,
I didn't know you could send yourself voice notes.
yeah. But if you go onto WhatsApp and you type in you, it will come up with your thing, and you just send
I
yourself
do
WhatsApp.
this with jokes. Sometimes I'll be in the car and I'll be like, oh, and I've thought of something that I think is a great idea.
Yeah.
And I'm like recording it, roughly the punchline, and then I go back and I
In a
write
voice
it,
note?
and I'm like, that was a shit idea.
Yeah.
That's never seen the light of day.
I ask Siri to make a note in my notes app, and it sort of does it via dictation, and it's always a little bit wrong. And then after the journey, I'm like, what is it? Fish? Is it fish? Is that the joke? I'm sure it is. Which is why my new show is called Fish.
Robin Morgan with fish.
Fish? Question mark?
Cool. So basically, I just think it's worth highlighting that laws and words are only as good as their actions. And if there are literally no actions at all, it's kind of the worst of both worlds, because everyone thinks, oh, well, we're on that.
Yeah.
Someone's dealing with that. But
Yeah, sure.
they're not. So, yes, the Welsh Government could do some extra money. Things like the Crown Estate would be really, really helpful in terms of making Wales better. But it would also help if our own government enforced the own laws that they themselves had brought in.
Yeah, at the very least, just grow some cress on the windowsill. That's
Please.
like good, isn't it? Like that's like
Make a little-
bare min.
Egg and cress sandwich.
We used to do that. We're growing egg cress in an eggshell.
Yeah, and then when I'd eat that egg and cress sandwich, knowing that I'd grown it, I'd harvested that myself, I'd feel like I am at one with the earth.
Yeah, I'm very good. And
better than everybody.
And that's the mentality that the Welsh government have when they release this bill.
Yeah.
I think I'm God.
Mark Dreyfus just there going, oh, this crust is delicious.
Yeah.
Should we submit this plan?
No, I'm too busy eating this crust.
You've got a very Churchill dog for Mark Drakeford.
Yeah, Drakeford is not Churchill dog.
He's not Churchill dog.
I found out yesterday that Churchill was the first person to ever use OMG. Did you guys know that? I bet you knew that, didn't you?
know that.
OMG.
Yeah, he was the first person in a letter
Fuck off.
to write OMG as an abbreviation.
For oh my God.
Yeah. I love that.
Hitler's in Poland.
Yeah.
OMG. Hashtag OMG.
LOL.
Hashtag what's he like?
OMG.
Yeah, he was the first one to use OMG as an abbreviation officially.
God, that might stop the millennials pulling down his statue.
Yeah, they were like, oh, I did like his vernacular.
Yeah.
His old turn of phrase.
That's a great fact.
Yeah, you're welcome.
As the weather's getting a little bit better, it's nice to be outside and just see the bit more sunlight. Eating outdoors, al fresco Welsh cuisine. You guys?
Well fresco?
Well fresco.
Yeah,
very,
love it.
very nice. I really like the sort of pop-up foodie places though. It's nice, isn't it? Like proper nice little day out.
Yeah, outside street food. Well, do you know what is great to get some street food out of if you do want to dine al fresco? Is a shipping container restaurant or eatery.
They don't need planning permission, do they?
They don't need the same kind of planning permission. You
Is
don't
that true?
Yeah, absolutely true, because they're temporary. You can plug and go as well.
Yeah, plug in and play.
Exactly. And also, you don't need the same commitment as bricks and mortar. You don't need the same planning permission. So it's a really good kind of shop front for your food business.
So if you want to quit the rat race and live the dream and
Yeah.
somebody selling their food for sweet dollar,
My goodness gracious.
a great place to do it would be a shipping container.
I'm really hungry.
Absolutely. Should we all go and find our own individual shipping container eatery now and then report back which one was the best?
Makes me think a bit like Roller Coaster Tycoon or Theme Park, where you used to sort of like, did you ever do
Theme
that?
Park.
Yes.
I love Theme Park World.
Yeah.
That's great stuff. If you were to get a shipping container, where would you go?
Where would I go?
Yeah, where would you purchase a shipping container from?
I would go for the Lion Containers. I think that's the only obvious choice, to be honest
I think
with
that's
you.
fair enough. Stupid question.
It's a no-brainer.
Yeah.
It's an absolute no-brainer.
Yeah, where can we find them? I think it's www.lioncontainers.co.uk.
I think it is there.
Yeah.
We should go there now.
Yeah, let's go now.
I want to talk about something very quickly, and that is about threats to MSs. So I've spoke to several members of the Senate, all women. I'm not saying this doesn't affect men, but all women who have received really serious physical threats on social media over the last year, and this has been increasing. People will be like, oh, well, of course, people in public roles always get like threats. But I mean, 2 MPs have been murdered in the last decade. So I don't want to go into details about the nature of the threats or indeed the MSs involved, because I don't think that will be helpful. But what I do want to point out is like they have to do a lot of proactive steps. Like they never say where they are in advance. Like if they're going to like the opening of a shop, they will say, I'll be in the valleys today. They won't say. And actually, I think that's such a shame, because one of the advantages of our political system should be that we have engaged and accessible politicians. I think that's a really, really important thing, that you can access your politicians. And I went and visited a MP in the Valleys recently, and his office is like a fucking bunker to get into, like double locks, cameras, like alarms. It's like really, really like quite sad, I think. And I just kind of thought it was worth finding. I mean, do you guys ever get anything like unpleasant on social media?
I mean, I don't get a lot. Like occasionally if you're on something like telly or radio, I suppose when you put your head above the parapet a bit more, I'll get stuff. But I know anecdotally, and just from watching both of your social medias, I can't imagine I get as much as you as a journalist, sort of like who writes about sometimes topics that slightly divisive, and I suppose myself as a white dude probably get a hell of a lot less than you online.
Yeah. And I think especially because I can only speak from my experience, if you are a woman with an opinion for a start, a lot of people don't love that. And then if you're a person of colour with an opinion, and a woman of colour with an opinion, that is like a red flag to a bull to a lot of people. I think for me, I've really noticed since we started doing the podcast, actually, the difference in the engagement that I get. So Instagram, I would say, is very different to Twitter. So Twitter, I would get she's an idiot, I can't believe she said that, which, to be honest, you know, that kind of hurts more a little bit.
Right.
I think there are times when I've felt unsafe where I've had to report things to the police to be like, we know where she lives. And I'm like, that is, but you know, I take, and I'm sure you guys do, take a lot of steps to really conceal where you live. Obviously you've got kids. I don't know if you post them online or anything, but when you are public facing, you do have to take those steps. But what I can imagine with these politicians is that what is different is they will do things that will kind of anger people. Yeah. I mean, when I worked for an MP, we had panic buttons or alarms and that kind of thing that would go straight to the police. And we had to use them. You know, because people would come in very angrily and not by anything necessarily that MP had done, just that, you know, when people are at their absolute wits end with life and they've had a letter from the council saying, no, we're not going to help you with this. They're filled with rage and
desperation.
Yeah. And then, you know, and there were times where we'd have to lock the doors, we'd have to have the shutters down because people are yelling, they're threatening. And like you say, well, it's a real shame that it has come to the place where public facing people who do serve their constituents can't let you know where they're going to be ahead of time. Yeah.
It's like, it's how divided we are as a society, but especially like within politics, right? Like I'm 35 and I feel like became sort of like politically aware, you know, like growing up as a teenager, you'd know, like, you know, who Tony Blair was, that kind of thing. But like, was politics that divisive? Like, obviously question time.
People didn't even have the access either, did they?
Sure. Well, I suppose, like, you know, obviously hugely horrible that these MSs are getting this abuse. I imagine it's on X, which has obviously gone through a lot of changes.
Facebook as well.
Interesting.
Facebook groups. I find that I get most of, I mean, some of the stuff I get is like, Jesus Christ, that is horrific. It kind of bounces off me most of the time now. But I tend to find it when I've done something that's good. Like when I've done something that I'm like, oh, I'm onto something here, because you obviously get a few nutters, absolutely fine. You just kind of phase it out. When you're like, oh, I'm pulling at a good thread here, I actually sometimes use the kind of, if there's a coordinated thing against me on Twitter, I'm like, oh yeah, fucking hell, I've got something good here.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Well, that's when you know you've really hit a nerve, right?
Yeah. Especially if I'm doing something around like climate change or expenses and stuff like that. You've like, oh, I've triggered something, or vaccines, big one. Also, sex education. Do anything around sex education?
Oh, is that a new culture war thing?
Really?
Yeah.
So what are the two sides of that argument?
A hell of a lot of resources has gone into angering kind of traditional Muslim women with regard to what their kids will be taught in schools. Right. Like when like the new Welsh curriculum came out. Like coordinated stuff from people who, I just want to say to people that these are not your friends who are making you angry here. These are not your allies.
Well, is this similar to those protests in school? Was it in Bradford like a few years ago, like outside high schools based on a new sex ed curriculum? And like, it's like, we're going to be teaching 4-year-olds about this stuff. It's like, no, you're going to be teaching PHSE.
Yeah. You're like, oh, you're teaching kids about sex. I'm like, well, actually, I went through the Welsh curriculum and I'm like, well, actually, they're saying, oh, this is sexualizing kids. And I'm like, no, actually, this is about teaching kids what is appropriate and how to report stuff that's done to them.
Kids with online are going to see stuff. I was chatting to my friends about this in the pub because they've got a child who's about to go into secondary school. I remember seeing pornography for the first time when I was in year 6 because based on like a pop-up on the internet. Yeah. So I would have been, I'm late, but I'm like an August birthday, so I would have been.
Have you got older siblings?
Yes, but I don't. Maybe it was him. No, Louis. But I remember that in year 6, which you know, that's not too far away from how old my kids are now. And it's so much more accessible now compared to when I was on the fucking family computer in 1999.
Yeah.
Like.
Yeah. Well, especially when it took 20 minutes for the boobs to appear on like a modem.
Yeah.
Like, here they come. Oh, she's got a bra. Boo.
But yeah, no, this stuff is super accessible. And you know, when we talk about sort of expectations of what people both all genders expect sex to be like, because it's been so based on internet, like pornography online, like it as a parent of young children, it really worries me.
with like online abuse and stuff like that, I think also it can be indirect. You know, I always use Meghan Markle as a really good barometer of how much I like somebody, because if the mention of her name causes them to go red with rage, they're not my friend.
Interesting.
You know, is she very irritating? Yes. But if her very existence, because it does have a very visceral effect on a lot of people.
Yeah, sure.
If you mention her, they're like, if you hate Meghan Markle, you are a racist. Sorry, that's that. Like, you are. And I will bring it up with people who,
There's a difference, isn't there, between annoyance, apathy and
hatred.
Exactly. And I think if you were annoyed by her, you think, oh God, you know, absolutely, you know, I find her irritating myself. But if her existence, if you're the kind of person who online will talk about how much you dislike her because she enrages you that much, I don't feel safe around you. And it's one of those things that, okay, they might not be tweeting about me, but I see what the subtext, what they're saying is. And it's a brown woman having an opinion really enrages me.
Yeah.
And so sometimes be careful what you're saying online. You know, like we've got family friends who will say things about how much they love Donald Trump, right? Yeah. And they might be people who I consider very important to my life, but I now feel less safe around them. You know, so it can be indirect.
Yeah, it's like indicative of the thought process.
Yeah.
Or lack of.
Yeah. And you go in, oh, but I like you. Doesn't make a blind bit of difference.
Yeah, I think the Facebook thing is really interesting because that's, you know, people criticize Gen Z and younger people for being addicted to online, you know, like their phones and screens and stuff. And like, but I feel like that older generation on Facebook, I do worry about where the news is coming from in terms of like a meme or, whenever there's
people
a story.
I get my news on Facebook. You don't. You read things on Facebook.
But no, you've looked at a photoshopped image of Keir Starmer opening the gates to Dover or something. and honestly, like, and like
the one gate on the cliff.
Yeah, but like it seems like I'm being flippant, but it genuinely, it's the amount of, sometimes I go down a rabbit hole and sometimes like reading the comments, like sometimes on Wales Online articles, because obviously they the model is engagement and stuff, but it makes me feel really hopeless and sort of a little bit worried for the future if you know, sort of my parents' generation are kind of like going down these fucking rabbit holes.
I think the thing to say is, it's supposed to make you feel like that. It's supposed to make a feeling of hopelessness. It's supposed to keep us divided. And it's impossible to engage with it in any long-term meaningful way and not feel like that. So you have to kind of distance yourself from them. And you have to, as you've said before, like Rob, you've said a lot, like engage with them in like a real...
In the real world, right? And I think ending on a sort of hopeful note, I think that like online isn't the real world. And I think that people hopefully, you know, like... hopefully we can make progress by having like real life discussions and stuff, and I'd like to think that there's probably more good out there than bad.
Somebody said to me yesterday, I really hope this is true, that we're probably going to go in a full circle where it will be really cool to be kind of analog and like offline, you know, where it will be cool to actually not be that chronically online. And I really do hope that's true, just for this reason alone, really.
There was a Guardian article a little while ago. You write for the Guardian. There was a Guardian article a little while ago about a Gen Z writer basically saying like the regrets of Gen Z. You know, like I wish I'd spent less time online. So I think there is a kickback to it now, and I feel like we are, in terms of like when my kids' generation are going to get a phone. There does seem to, just anecdotally, there seems to be a bit more of a, we don't know what this is doing to people, and I think
well, I can't forgive Gen Z for bringing back fucking skinny jeans, but there we go.
Another topic for another day.
For another day.
Guys, I really enjoyed today. That was really good fun. I enjoyed it immensely.
Thank you.
I actually really, it's kind of a bit of a, this sounds pathetic. It's kind of a highlight of my week, us just hanging out and just chewing the fat.
It's nice, isn't it? I don't think we even need the microphones, man. I'm glad we do, because otherwise, goodness me.
Otherwise, it's just a powwow.
50 minutes of dead air every single week. Sponsored by ACT Training.
Cool. People can, we don't need to plug a live show anymore, but people can get merch.
Merch is available. Follow links on our social pages. Thank you very much for listening. tell a friend, share on social media. That's always useful. Tag us in posts. That's always nice as well.
Absolutely. Has anybody got anything to plug at the moment? I don't, I'm writing at the moment. I've got nothing live to plug. Anybody else?
I'm doing work in progress shows ahead of a new tour, and you can find out all about them online. I'm also doing a kids show. I'm working up a new kids show. I'm doing a kids show at Mach Comedy Fest. Me doing kids comedy for an hour.
Kids comedy is tough, isn't it? It's like doing
it to 300 stag do's.
I love that.
The attention span is very similar.
I love that. Wasn't your kids show shortlisted for something at the Leicester Comedy Awards?
Nominated for Best Kids Show.
Aren't you also nominated for Best Compere?
Best Compere at the Chortle Awards. And the panel show that I host, which you both feature in very heavily, What Just Happened, was nominated for Best Comedy at the Celtic Media Awards.
I'm very starstruck to be sat so close to you.
We're in the presence of genius.
Yeah.
I have a newsletter. If you subscribe to it, you help pay for my food. Also, if you want to sponsor it, you can help pay for my food. It's the Will Hayward newsletter. Give it a Google. It better be at the top. If there's another one.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah.
It's very good.
Oh,
it is. Well,
it is very good.
I have been Mellowin.
I am and will remain to be Robin Morgan.
And I'm Will Hayward.
Ta-da!
See you later.